Good afternoon and welcome to our meeting. I think our clock's a little ahead of itself up there, so we'll get that resolved. Welcome to our ordinary council meeting for the 6th of August. Do I have any apologies?
Councillor Blakey.
Councillor Fulton, did you have
I just wanted to step out at 5 o'clock for a meeting.
So we're still going at 5?
Yeah, still going at 5, yep. Thank you.
Someone need to move those to this. Councillor Fulton, Councillor Coles, really. I'll put those, all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, that carried. Are there any conflicts of interest for reporting? Councillor Meetings?
8.1, just out of an abundance of caution due to that matter being also in front of the district plan hearings.
Yeah, 8.1 seems decision making, isn't
We've got those noted.
That was the following meeting, I think on the one.
Sorry?
I think my issue was for the following meeting.
You still need.
I go on.
Is it on the council agenda today?
It is on the council agenda.
Yeah,
I get told to clear that for
So you might just want to advise us which it is.
Yes.
Just to comment, our conflict on the gravel pit extraction decisions.
So is that?
Yeah.
It's under the PE.
Just have a question on that one for myself around planning and
So just 16.7 for Councillor Fulton. He's sorry.
just a question probably of the CE really, with the council meetings itself, given the its decision making of a gravel pit proposed district plan, the rules around gravel pits and so on. Is it a push or is it could it be perceived or are we okay? I think we're okay, but I just
Well, yeah, that's up to you. Make a decision. You conflict of interest, but in terms of the proposed district plan, I don't feel there's a conflict of interest.
thank you.
Okay, any other conflicts to be recorded? So they've, it's 8.1, both Deputy Mayor and Councillor Meetings, and 16.7 for Councillor Fulton. So I'm prepared to, or just for notion and reporting. Are there any acknowledgements? Oh, I think we can probably acknowledge Artisan Bakery for two superb pies, which the Deputy Mayor and myself had the privilege of hopping down and congratulating the staff, but also to sample said pies. I am a lover of pies. I don't have them very often because they're not my waistline, but that aside, would highly recommend people indulge in those pies. They're delicious. Didn't realise actually that it's the pastry rather than the material inside of the pastry is not right, then you didn't go through. I'm sure Councillor Ward would know that from many years in the catering business, but just to acknowledge Ron, Alan and Kenny. We're very proud of their achievements, and my understanding is that they're selling well down the road, which is superb. All right, okay. Confirmation of the minutes. So we've got 4.1 and 4.2. Someone prepared to move 4.1. Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor Deputy Mayor Atkinson. I'll put that minutes. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Item 4.2, which is the meeting on the 2nd of July. Someone prepared to move. Move Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Fulton. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, declare that carried. Are there any matters arising on the minutes? No. I have no deputations and presentations, though I do understand that in relation to 16.6 we may be having a member of that, which is the PX, member of the Oxford Ahoka Community Board may be present for that.
That's
So
all right, I'll do it later. It's all right.
There's no adjourned business. We come to reports. The first is 7.1, which is Northbrook Trail. So staff to come forward. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Kia ora all. My name is Chrissy and this is Anna, and we're here to present this report today. This report is seeking approval to acquire a right-of-way easement to allow for stage 1 of the Northbrook Trail and for council to take on maintenance costs, which will begin in 3 years' time. There will be no cost to council for the physical construction of the trail, and the ongoing maintenance costs will be included within the program green space operational budgets for the 2027 to 2023 long-term plan. The cost for the easement acquisition is proposed to be paid for by the Arohatia Te Awa Fund, which has been endorsed by the Arohatia Te Working Group. I'll take the report as read and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Did you have anything you wish to add?
Oh, I think Chrissy's covered it.
Thank you. Questions of colleagues? Councillor Hill.
Thank you for this report, it's very exciting. Just could you please confirm that this easement is going to be east of the new proposed eastern link road, right through to Sparks, through to Northbrook Road? It is all east of the...
I'm just checking it up, but yeah.
I'm just mostly concerned, not concerned, but what I know that living down there, that there's lots of little creeks and waterways that go in
Yes.
at the end of Sparks Road, just making sure that it's on the other side.
Yeah, it's definitely on the east side, and afterwards they introduced a meeting, because obviously aware of that road going through and then plans for it, wanting to work in plans on the west side as well, but no, this is definitely on the east.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Fulton from the Reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick check. I'm not familiar with the term easement in gross. What sort of gross? What's it? Just my future understanding for it.
Like it's a test because Philip will tell me. Just basically means the whole area and forever. Explain it. Basically over, it's too gross to the council. It's for that whole area for us, anyone that we need to see fit coming onto it. And basically with us. Yeah, sure, with us, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In paragraph 1.10, page 41 diligent, and referring to the easement conditions, I wonder if you could explain what the last part of the sentence means. Its use and the day-to-day interaction between the pathway and the owner's property. What's envisaged?
So a lot of the standard terms, just because this differs a bit, and obviously Jeff's quite, is keen to make sure the terms sort of relate to how he's basically day-to-day running of the farm. So things along signage for that it's a working farm, probably gates and how people access it. We're also going to have a gate in the middle of the easement line that will just be for the owners and for us to access for maintenance and to be able to, so things like that about what we can do, what the public can do, and just making sure that as farms not going to be affected by the public walking, in terms of rubbish. Talked about dog, all those sort of things. Just those general day-to-day workings to ensure. So somewhere along those lines, adding to those terms.
Will dogs be permitted on the easement?
Yes, they will. So we allow for dogs, horses, no horses, dogs, but then no horses and no motorbikes, but dogs and push bikes and electric bikes. Yeah, just going to stop things up and over, and some things that obviously in the future with green space we'll be able to talk, everything starts to come up as it's used, it's commuting routes, but yeah, some more general terms in those easements. around it, and also about how he works with firearms and things like that. So some things around that as well to manage that control.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Just a question on the council looking at doing an eastern link in the sort of same area. Is it a viable thing to do both the surveying, both scenarios at the same time to save a few dollars?
That would be good, but I don't think the timing probably will, given the time, how far out the road is, and the work that's going to be done to finalise that. And the need probably for the survey to be done sooner rather than later, probably not. So.
Councillor Goldsworthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just with regards to the maintenance budget, which obviously would kick in a few years if we proceed with this, has that been adjusted for inflation, or is that what it will cost today for us to do it?
Yes, it has been adjusted.
Thank you. No further questions. There's a recommendation you wish to move, Councillor Ward, seconded Councillor Mealings. Wish to speak?
I think this is a really good partnership and really nice of the Sparks family to offer this for the future of the people enjoying the area, and I think it's a really good thing to do. So
Thank you, Councillor Mealings. Any further speakers? Do you wish to exercise your reserving that?
Thanks. I just want to thank the staff for starters for all the work that's gone into this. And this is a fantastic project, which is a really wonderful example of collaboration between our farming families, the Spark family, for instance, the Waimakariri Land Care Trust, the Runanga and Council. It's a great public-private partnership, and it's been a very generous gift of the land by the Spark family to the council for public use, and the benefits that our community will receive once this is established are fantastic. It will link together other trails that we have, the Ahatiatiawa Trail and the Northbrook Trail will also link together, and it'll give a lot more recreational opportunities, cultural heritage enhancement, just biodiversity. There's so many benefits, and it's at the same time we can showcase best farming practice while we're at it. So for the princely sum of $1 to the Spark family, thank you Spark family, and just looking after this after year 3 like we would with any other asset that we have. We get a fantastic asset for our community, so I just really wanted to highlight that, and I hope you'll all support this. Thank you.
I just endorse those remarks made. It's a very generous gift to the district by both the Spark family, both Richard and also Jeff. They've certainly made that available to us from the very early days, which it's great to see that we're into that pace of implementing that now, which I think will become something very significant. And it's certainly improved that coming and working through Ahatiatiawa, which is the right group for this to be led by. So it adds to other work that we'll be doing as part of a plan that we've been discussing for some time. So it's, I'm really pleased to see this come to fruition and appreciate the efforts of not only the staff, but the elected members, but again to just acknowledge the generosity of the Spark family to make this happen. Any further speakers? Right, apply if you wish, Councillor Ward. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Next to me. We're now at 7.2. Mr. Roxburgh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor the purpose of this report was to seek Council's approval
for a new project, with new project budgets. It's not in the current and plan for the caravan dump station improvements, and also to defer existing project, which was the current trailer parking in Clydewood. There is an urgent need to do something with the Charles Street caravan dump station. This due mainly to the current safety concerns. There's actually an image on page 53 of your agenda. That's actually a photo of the current Charles Street dump station configuration. And you can see from that it's very close to the carriageway. What we have seen or heard has been happening is that people using the dump station sometimes do actually park in that live lane whilst they empty their tanks. So there's an obvious safety concern there. Similarly, as they get in and out of vehicles, they're very close to a live lane of traffic. This is a low speed environment, it's a 30 km/h speed limit here, but there's definitely need of some improvement or something otherwise being done. There are other dump stations within the district. Some of them are privately owned. There are a couple there. So there's one other in Clydewood, there's others in Ravenswood, a couple in Rangiora as well. Just with regard to recommendation C there, so for the dump station, we suggested a new budget of up to $125,000. So that does depend on what contribution there might be from the New Zealand Motor Caravan Association. The initial advice we had from them is depending on the scale and the assessed need. Some of the larger dump stations can attract funding for $25,000 to $30,000. Also, that's just a very high level estimate at this stage, would need refinement, and there's a reasonably high amenity solution, so could be reviewed. Then with regard to the car and boat trailer parking, ultimately, if all of the recommendations in this report were adopted, that would result in a net $173,000 reduction in this current year's budget. I'll have to take questions.
Thank you. Just a question from me to start with. I understand there is a desire by some to see the not only the current dump station, but one perhaps on site on the Motor Caravan Association. We furthered any discussion with them around that, and if not, why not?
At this stage, haven't talked specifically about the dump station on the Motor Caravan Association site. There has been talk about it previously, especially when they were originally planning the project and building it. I guess we'd need to consider, is there a need for two in such close proximity? I think it would be a one or other arrangement. If one did go on the Motor Caravan Association site, I guess the concern there would be that would potentially dilute the funds available for us from the Motor Caravan Association if we were to retain Charles Street.
They're supportive of this, we wouldn't go into that.
Yeah, well, we've had a chat to the national property team who generally do the administration of dump stations, and that's where we got the initial advice that there should be funding available. It didn't focus on the adjacent part.
Okay, I've got Councillor Meadows, Atkinson, Cairns, Stage, Councillor Meadows.
Duncan, so given that the cost and or any supplementary funding from the NZMCA is unknown but likely to be less than the amount asked for in the report and so forth for carrying out this project, and that there's been an identified risk with the continuing parking situation for the Coast Guard operations and the risk of cost escalation if we defer that. Is it possible, could we find out the cost of the dump station upgrade and then apply any remaining funding that's already been approved towards alleviating the boat parking issue, even if it's staged? because we're actually talking about cutting a budget, which is fantastic. But you've also identified a risk of cost escalation for the project, which needs to be undertaken in the future if we wait. So could we stage that?
I think it would be quite difficult to, I think I've understood the question properly. I think it would be quite difficult to stage the boat trailer parking element of the jobs. It's more of an all or nothing if we were going to commit to the boat trailer parking. I guess an interim solution could potentially take the form of just opening up some space but not improving it to allow people to park off the road. But I think that we'd quickly run into issues there just with ground conditions and we'd still have issues with parking behaviour. I think the ground issues would probably be the main barrier to that. If we were to open up an area for boat trailer parking, I think we need to go the whole hog and improve the area in one go. I think it would be hard to do a stage. We did note, in the report there is some risk there about bad parking behaviours. There has historically been some around the boat ramp. Sadly, even providing a good 15 park space in future may not preclude that from still happening anyway. It doesn't, from what I've heard, it doesn't seem to occur a lot, but there always will be a bit of a risk there. It'd be a bit heightened if we push the boat trailer parking out.
Just worth asking the question given the importance of not impeding access to the coast guard. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just preface, really, I had a quick chat with Chris this morning, just so you know. In the recommendation, it talks about the Charles Street pump station and upgrading it. We would need to change that recommendation if the pump station was to change from where it's present, because that talks about Charles Street. Would we not be better in the recommendation to be talking about a pump station, given that we've got to think ahead of that ground that is there, and 10 or 15 years time, could be commercial, could be housing, could be. Do we really want a pump station, a dump station right on that riverbank with everybody overlooking it? If we took the Charles Street thing out there, does that give us options, is what I'm asking really?
I guess it would. Just one caveat to that would be that there is, obviously there's plenty of options available in other sites potentially. One issue we do have in that area is that there is not a whole lot left in the way of sewer infrastructure. So as it is at the Charles Street dump station, there is a pumping station as well that we're actually not proposing to upgrade as part of this work. So it's there currently and it's working. I guess that's the only, it could be taken out, and then that would mean you could assess other site options. I guess what I'm pointing out is, that might mean that the cost could also go up because you'd also then have to build another pumping station in another place of production. That's just the only caveat there.
Given that, but the sewer runs all the way down Charles Street and across the river. Had a look at the plan this morning. So the sewer is actually there, isn't it?
There's a pressure sewer in the area, but there's no gravity sewer. It stops. From William Street, there's gravity sewer up to just past the New World, but beyond there, everything is like pressure sewer.
Also, are you aware, got my motor caravan, that the Motorhome Association appear to be, in partnership with McEwen's at the present time, pushing dump stations and laundries at McEwen's service stations. And I don't know how recent your chat is, and if you've had a chat with them, is that something that they're now promoting over PPPs with us, so to speak? View on this and the debate, I'll talk about it, but Are you aware of that? This has only just come out, but in seeing that, it would suggest that they're in partnership with McEwen's doing this stuff. Are you aware of that?
No, I wasn't aware of that, although I'm aware that there is one already at the McEwen's petrol station on Smith Street, so yeah, that reflects that partnership. It wasn't raised by them as part of that discussion, but again, we're putting to the national property team, so they may be aware of
That's right, I only got that yesterday anyway.
that's good to know.
The other question is around safety of the existing site, given that it can be, we walk our little dogs around here, it can be 10 vans at any one time on the site it is at the moment. Plus you've got the scour there, and in the future that scour will, not the scour itself, but that part will probably become a boat park. Is that seriously the right place to have something safety-wise, given that that is it's the way to the dog park, it's the way to recreation areas down there for softball, those sorts of things. And the only spill from that dump station is onto the road. Spill, I mean camper vans, I don't mean spill as in sewage. Hopefully there'll be no spill from sewage. And, you know, do you think that it's actually worth investigating, putting something there from that purpose?
Yes, we could look at other sites. I struggle off the top of my head to think of an alternative. One thing it does have going for it, as you point out, there are recreation facilities down the road, but other than that, it is leading into the regeneration area, so there's not a whole lot of traffic there, and it is a low-speed environment. I guess the proximity to the Motor Caravan Association Park is a bit of a bonus at the moment, well, a bonus for them. The proximity to the town centre, I guess, could potentially be seen as a good thing, because people might go out of their way to come into the town centre to use it and hopefully stay, and there might be spin-offs. But I guess all those kind of things would need to factor into that kind of consideration. The other bit would just be finding another location where we have land suitable to put an alternative. So, if council wanted to, recommendation C could potentially be changed to open up some more options there. But it would need probably a bigger investment if it were to go onto another site.
Councillor Kings.
Okay, you stole a lot of my questions.
Already asked.
I'm wondering, in terms of as an authority, can we abdicate our responsibilities in terms of providing a dump station to the motorhomes by allowing a commercial operator to provide those services? And it's clear to me, in terms of McCallum's, that they're putting in a laundromat, they're putting in the dump station. It's clear that that's obviously part of their marketing strategy to get the camper vans in there. So are we able to delegate those responsibilities?
Apologies, I can't answer that for sure. Obviously there are requirements in some of the acts noted in the report where councils need to consider public health and sanitation, and so by extension that includes making sure there's not people dumping waste inappropriately. So it's a very good question, because if someone else is providing it, does that mean we're not obligated to? One of the options we have put in the report is to potentially remove it entirely. That's not our recommended course of action, but I guess that will weigh into the council's decision around that as to legally are we required to keep it. Just checking, Chris, do we own others within the district? So council does
own
own
dump station in Oxford. Thanks, Duncan. In terms of you made the comment before that the current situation is working. but I see a lot of sucker trucks there. So is that just part of the maintenance plan, or is it are there issues with the sewer there in its current location, and that it requires a sucker truck there on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I wasn't actually aware that the sucker truck was there that often. I know there were some issues some months ago where the pump failed, so sucker trucks were working there, but sorry, I wasn't aware that they were there like that regularly, so that's something I need to follow up. It sounds like something not working. Generally, the pumps on their own should just keep the system working. That may need a clean out every now and then, but certainly not regularly.
And then following on from the Mayor and Deputy Mayor in terms of this being the correct location, has there been any investigation in terms of the safety? Because I look at now the amount of traffic that's on that road, the River Queen operating on a regular basis, the Kaiapoi Market, the walkways, the Scalp. Has there been any investigation in regards to how busy that road has become and becomes so unsafe for actually the motorhome parks to actually be there on that current location? And should we really consider taking it some place to a more of the commercial environment?
At this stage, no, we haven't gone quite into that depth in terms of assessment of just how much traffic there is on the road yet. So, you haven't done that at this stage. But.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I had some questions about the functionality of the any new improvements, upgrade items 4.10 J. You talk, for example, about adding a second submersible pump and about how it upgrades design and etc. We'll talk a lot on council about what happens in the event of a disaster, whether it be flooding, earthquake, whatever. It's on the generation area. So how do we mitigate the risks of actually having this current pumping system where it's flooding, for example? Is this the optimal location on that list?
I guess just with regard to flooding, so the new design would look to improve that to try and reduce the risk of stormwater ingress and things like that. You know, at the moment it is quite low set, and it wouldn't take much if the curb did overtop to actually start to enter the system, and then it would overrun pumps potentially. Just with regard to resilience, I guess there's a bit of a risk with that everywhere. Being on a pressure system, on one hand, does the downstream pipe work, I guess, is a bit more resilient. So obviously it used to be connected to the gravity pipe in Charles Street, and you know what happened to that after the earthquakes, and that's when it stopped working. So in terms of its discharge pipeline, it's being a pressure system that's as resilient as we can reasonably make it. Adding another pump would add a bit of resilience just in terms of reliability, just in case we're having to have a fault or a blockage. Yeah, so does that answer your question?
It does. I'm thinking in terms of like, there's a context of another conversation about floor levels and maximum flooding levels and site locations. Second question was quite different from me. Was actually, this is correct, this is a piece of publicly funded infrastructure which is private, which is primarily used by non-residents by definition. Do we have any other infrastructure that will be paid for and upgraded for the benefit of tourists and visitors? It's quite an interesting proposition, isn't it?
Yeah, I imagine we do, but yeah, it's a good question. I guess a lot of our facilities around the district in our open spaces, yeah, used by visitors and ratepayers alike. It is, yeah, the dump station would be used by district residents and ratepayers. I guess hopefully if they've been away and they come back with a full tank, they need to dispose of it somewhere. This is a facility where they could do it. But yes, the balance is probably mostly visitors would be using the pump station. But yes, it's not unique in that regard that it's more heavily used by, it is possibly a bit more unique that it's one of the assets that would be more heavily used by visitors rather than ratepayers compared to some of the other assets.
Thank you, Councillor Redmond.
Thanks for the report, Duncan. And you show a figure on page 52 of an upgraded dual lane dump station in Ashburton. Are you envisaging something similar for Charles Street? That level of amenity?
So yes, at the moment, the just very high level cost estimate that's included in this report is based on a similar level of amenity to that. So it could potentially be reduced.
And this one in Ashburton, was that provided by the Ashburton District Council?
Yes. So, it's my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
Duncan, just on the Carwood to a Hewitt Community Board, has there been, to pick up in the reports list, if you could remind me what engagement we've had with the board about this?
So I think October last year, the board had a workshop looking at the locations for the boat trailer parking, and also the dry storage of the Scow's Success. And that's when staff got the directive to go out and start public consultation on that, but we haven't actually done that yet. And then most recently, I think it was the June board meeting, again I think it was a workshop afterwards, was when the board suggested to reprioritise the boat trailer parking.
So do you think as part of this exercise, if someone is considering moving this, that the board should be consulted as part of this process before we conclude the location?
It has been to the board, and we've discussed it around the board.
So is the board supportive of this direction?
Of the urgent upgrade of the east.
So this one I'm just wanting to check. So if it's been done, that's fine. Okay.
That's my understanding.
I do mean specifically in this current location.
Yes.
Or just the board members here, those who are our councillors that represent here are confident that it's fine. I just wanted to this is a fairly major item. All right. You're going to move to
with a new D, which investigates other sites that may be available for a dump station within 5 years.
I think that's been moved. Sorry, you moved to second that one. So just for Adrian's benefit, and investigates other sites
within
So the rest of the words go through.
Rest
Rest of the wording as it is and add that on to
yes, and then just move the letters down here to go so it remains.
Moved and seconded, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, you heard me talk about the Boat Owner Association before. My understanding is that it still has 95% occupancy rate since it opened, and that's delivering an economic benefit to our district, which is actually huge. Now, while we accept those visitors in and they use our dump station, we'll call it, we also send people to other areas who use other people's dump station in exactly the same way. And it's a lot better than things going all over the ground and the floor and rivers where they shouldn't go. Also need to remind people that people live on their boats at the wharf. And I know of 3 of those boats that use that dump station for their waste also. So the locals do use it, and it's quite right. There are people who return in their caravans who still have full tanks that use the dump station. So there is, look, pick a figure, there's 90% of tourists use it, 90% of tourists that we want in this district to help our economy. And you take those things away and become less friendly for these people, you don't get them. I remember just about 12 months ago, Paris for the weekend saying that they were getting 8 couples a day, every day of the week, from the Motorhome Association to their dump station. And that was coming into winter. Now that might not seem much, but that's one restaurant in Kaiapoi that didn't have that trade before. So it's a pretty important trade economically internally for our people to be there. I went past there yesterday, and it was later in the evening. In fact, I was on the phone to Councillor Keynes at the time. There was 17 caravans and a -5 morning in the Motorhome Association for the dead of winter. So it shows you how much it's used. Its proximity to Kaiapoi is really. The difference is that the dump station is there, was paid for half by the Motor Caravan Association. That's the existing one. We have been in. So they did contribute to it, and they did put it there. If you put the dump station on the Motorhome Association, you are suggesting that that is exclusive. That is their park. They pay a lease for it every year, and that park is leased to them on a commercial basis for their vans which to go in. You technically could lock the public out of it if you were through their gates. I don't think the Motorhome Association would ever do that, but there is a possibility of being able to do that. So that's not something we need to do. We need to make sure that the people at the wharf have something there. We need to make sure that the public have really free accessibility to the dump station. My concerns, and the reason that I've raised different areas, is the fact that we have regeneration land there, which will become commercial, will become retail, will become housing, will become whatever it will become as time comes on. And I'm just not sure, when we're talking about facing the river and making sure that everybody uses the river and you never turn your back on the river, that's what all of our plans say, that when you're in that area facing a dump station is exactly what you want to be facing when you're there as a retail, commercial, whatever that space will become as time goes on. So, and that's only come up in my mind recently when you're thinking further ahead about what's happening. You're going, is that actually the right place to put something right beside the Coast Guard, right there, for the future, not for now, for now, for the next 5 to 10 years, it might be perfectly fine. But after that, we'll be going, do we really want that there? And there are other spaces that could happen. We've got the Honda Tree Forest, for instance, right down that line and then back up, right down the boundary of there, and then back out to Jones Street, down the boundary of the NZMCA park, could be a possibility to look at. There is sewer there, it's only across the road from where it was. Also down the end of Charles Street is another place that you could look at. We haven't had a look. So I move on now to McEwen's and this here. I do think that the Motorhome Association is partnering with McEwen's, and that they are promoting each other, because it does say at the bottom of this article, and so it talks about the laundry and it talks about the dump station, and it says down it's a one-stop shop, and who knows, they might buy some petrol whilst there. So there is the commercial element. May I remind people that also we own some camping grounds, and certainly the one at Waikuku is a public dump station within the campground. So we have examples of it where it is and how it works already. So I think we need to be really mindful of that they are part of what we do in the makeup of tourism in our district. So I urge you to support this. It's about investigation. It's about leaving the doors open to say, who knows, where it is, may be perfect. We might come back and say, look, this is the best we've got. We need to stay here and leave it at that. But I just want to leave the door open so we can have the discussion to make sure that we don't put things in the wrong place, and in 5 years or 10 years we're kicking ourselves because we've done it wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Keynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with what Deputy Mayor has already said. We want to welcome motorhome people coming to the town. There's currently in the New Zealand Motorhome Association membership 117,000 members. Kaiapoi is ranked, I think it is either 3rd or 4th in New Zealand as the most popular camping ground within their facilities. And ironically, Kaiapoi is still not ranked as a New Zealand motorhome friendly town. So it's important that we do have a dump station, but whether or not we can actually abdicate that responsibility to procurers is unknown. I look at the jewel in the crown that Kaiapoi has, which is the river. I look at the number of people that actually walk up and down that river and the amount of vehicles that travel to the dog park. I just think that the location of the dump station on Charles Street is the wrong one, and hence the reason for the change or the amended motion in regards to looking at a different location. And I also look at Charles Street. In 10 years' time or 20 years' time, I imagine that it's going to be a mixed business use area. It's going to be filled with businesses. It's already seen now that in the last couple of years, a huge amount of traffic that's coming in to visit our cafes, our restaurants, our bars. The River Queen, as I said earlier, it's becoming more and more popular. We've got more and more traffic down that area. So subsequently, I believe that we do have to have a dump station, but it's just a question about the location. So it'd be good to get feedback from the staff as to where that location should be. As Neville's already said, it might be Charles Street, but let's do the investigation first. And I hope that you're able to support this motion based on that. Thanks.
Just wonder if the mover and seconder might consider getting to the end of D, investigates other sites within Kaiapoi and consults the Kaiapoi Retiwi Community Board as part of this exercise. Happy with that? Is meeting happy with that amendment? Just briefly speaking to this, I support the direction of this. I'm relaxed around the location, and I really would like to. I think investigating the options of other sites is entirely appropriate. We're considering an amount such as this. I do note when I opened the this particular location, the Caravan Association site, there were a number that spoke to us around the current location. Some would have preferred it completely on their site, and I can understand why. Having been having a caravan in the past, you like it as nearby as you can. Means that you don't have to travel so far. However, on the way out of a town, it's not greatly out of the way. If you've got your own self-containment, they can go anywhere. It's not stopping the Motor Caravan Association putting one on the site without approval themselves if they wish. That may well be something they look to do given the popularity of the site. I think this has been a really great thing that's happened in our district. I continue to get positive comments from people around that particular park. Its closeness and proximity to the town. Retailers talk favourably about this and the impact it's having on their businesses, which is great, which was the exact reason why we were supportive of it there in the first place. I know the Deputy Mayor, every opportunity he had when Motor Caravan Association were at local government events, took the liberty of making it very clear of the council's view on that, because knowing with 117,000 members just what gold that is to our district. So it's great. I'm really pleased to see the work we're doing in this space to upgrade is a positive, because it's clearly being used and needed. So I'm not fixed, as I said, on the location, and just really would like to see that the board is included as part of that, because they're a very important partner to us in this exercise. So I'm supportive of that, and thank you for the report, Duncan. Any further speakers? Councillor Edmonds.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Can I just get the exact reading? You said and consults with Kaiapoi to a Community Board.
As part of this exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll support this recommendation as amended, although I would have been more than happy to support the original recommendation unchanged. I think it's clear from the report, and I think Duncan referred to anecdotal comments, that this is one of the busiest dump stations in the country. And the reason for that is convenience. It's close to the town centre, it's close to the motor caravan park, and it's used by people, so it's not something that's broken that we need to fix. We're looking at enhancing it and improving it. And if you look at the photo of the Ashburton dump station, it is of high amenity, and I don't think it would detract from that particular area. It's pretty obvious that anything we do today is never going to necessarily be appropriate in 10, 20, 30 years' time. Things change. Kaiapoi is much different today than I would have imagined 40 years ago. So things do change over time, and if it turned out to be in an inappropriate spot in the future, then no doubt it could be relocated. So having said that, I've no objection to other sites being considered, but I think they'd have to be extremely good to warrant moving or closing this dump station and relocating it. So that was the first part. The second part is reallocation of the budget. It's attractive in some ways in that it will give a debt reduction of 173,000 if the money isn't used at this time. However, I personally don't think the Coast Guard boat ramp is really fit for purpose with public in terms of its access, manoeuvrability and lack of parking in the vicinity if you do get through that obstacle. And I just mentioned in passing whether that money could be spent elsewhere, such as Ashkeaton, which again, like the dump station, is quite a popular location, notwithstanding the fact it's become very tidal and not very, certainly not of high amenity. The existing boat ramp at Ashkeaton was installed about 1982 or 1983. It's still there, it's now tidal however, so the environment has changed. What was a picnic area next to Ashkeaton is now reverted to, shall we say, a wetland or a swamp, and totally unsuitable for the purpose it had 40 years ago. So I note in the budget that Ashkeaton is proposed to have money spent in about 3 years' time. So either way, I'm happy that it's less money we need to borrow, or else we could use it to enhance and improve what I think is a more suitable location for launching boats. So with that in mind, I am prepared to go along with the recommendation, but I think the dump station site in Charles Street will be very hard to beat.
Thank you. Councillor Fortune, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just first my initial remarks was saying, obviously I don't have the breadth of knowledge of Kaiapoi and the surrounds Blue Lakes and my colleagues, but nonetheless, I do find myself actually walking down that area quite often. I was actually just down both sides of the river the other day. I was thinking of everything about how 14 years after the earthquake just coming out to it, how much it must have changed. I do tend to think that actually that there's a little bit of an argument for what the future is now. We talk a lot in council about the cost of retrofitting things and being reactive in 5 to 10 years' time. So I think it's really valuable to have that capacity to look now as to where alternative locations may be, if there are any. Because we used to call waste stations dumps as well. We don't call them dumps anymore. I think an attractive Kaiapoi probably doesn't really necessarily want a dump station of any sort on its prime frontage. And I realise, I accept that there's a lot of convenience for the users at the moment, that the motorhome associations, it's big business for Kaiapoi, it's good for the district. But I think just giving ourselves the slight room to look at other locations is really valuable. So on that basis, I accepted and support the amended recommendation so that we can start thinking of the future now, perhaps not 10 to 20 years time. Thank you.
Thank you for your speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not much left to say apart from the trailer park and the reallocation of funding and saving that. Look, I think it's very clear that the trailer park is not warranted for the next 5 years. There's not enough. There's plenty of room on the road for them to park, and right at the present time, and we've taken a guesstimate that that's around the 5-year period. After that, there will no doubt be a need for that to establish wherever that may be at the time. Councillor Redmond talks about change, and we need to keep up with change. Well, I'm sorry, but Ashkeaton has changed. It changed 14 years ago. It is now a wetland area, and it is that statute from ECAN because it has lowered itself. And if we want to keep pouring good money after bad into fixing up to something that's sliding into the river, then I suggest we carry on doing that. But at the present point in time, unfortunately, people will have to be forced to be changed over time because we will just be absolutely wasting money putting it into Ashkeaton when it's sliding into the river further. Saw a gentleman some time ago who clearly wasn't familiar with Kaiapoi or the river, who parked his boat on the lower piece of Ashkeaton, went fishing, came back, and I saw him when he went to get in his car and the water was pouring out his doors. I'd suggest it's possibly not a satisfactory place to have a boat ramp when your car's going underwater at king tides. So it's silly fight for parking on the lower piece, but it is not obvious because the boat ramp is right there. And those that know it park on the higher area. Those who don't know it take the risk and park on the lower area. So it's just sliding away. I mean, it's gone down since the earthquake year after year. The reeds are up around it. So we need to make sure that we are thinking of the future. And Councillor Redmond's absolutely right. It changes. Therefore, we need to think about change at Ashkeaton. And the Coast Guard is the only other option that was investigated heavily through the regeneration plan for a long time, with many things thrown on the table of where you could go and what you could do. And we couldn't find a spot that anybody wanted, apart from there was partial acceptance that people could use the Coast Guard boat ramp. And the Coast Guard were very generous in the fact that all you have to do is, when your siren goes off, is get the hell out of the way quick. And look, you can argue backing down a right angle into a river isn't that convenient. Well, I'll suggest to you that it's a hell of a lot easier. I've seen people trying to back their boats at Havelock straight, and believe me, that's harder than backing at a right angle. When I look at the people that try and put their boats in the water, good entertainment if you get the chance. Look up to Havelock and sit there for the afternoon because it's good fun. So that's in the boat area. I think it's just not the parking area just isn't necessary at this time, and particularly when we're trying to restrain budgets. This is one of those things that we can just put off for now until it's actually needed, and then do it from there.
Okay, we'll clear on the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Clear that carry. Thanks, Duncan. All right, we've now come to item 8, which is where there's referred from community boards. The first is item 8.1, proposed amendments to technical practice. No, it's not plugged in.
Good afternoon, councillors. Mr. Mayor, so first of all, apologies from Jennifer. She's not well today, so it's not at work. So the purpose of this report is to seek approval of the technical practice note on flood mapping, freeboard and floor levels. So this report was presented to the Utilities and Roading Committee meeting in July, and there was a question related to an area to the west of William Street, north of the Kaiapoi River. So this has been further investigated, and there was a memo that was circulated to councillors that summarised that assessment, and what we identified, there were 2 areas which aren't subject to river or breakout or localised flooding, but are subject to coastal inundation. So they didn't have polygons assigned to them, hence the reason that they weren't included. So they have now been updated and all of the areas reviewed to make sure there weren't any other areas that were omitted. And we are asking, I've put in the memo a suggested revised recommendations. So they are in part 2, and that is asking for figures 5 and 7 in the memo to be, or noting that they have been revised, and approving the adoption of the technical practice note, including the updated maps. It's probably just worth, if you've got the memo available, so on page 4 of the memo it does show the figures 4 and 6, which are the 100 and 200 year events.
So just, there are paper copies here for members. Adrian might pass those around. Thank you.
Yeah, so figures 4 and 6 are the ones that were presented to the Utilities and Roading Committee, and figures 5 and 7 are the updated figures that we're asking to be adopted and included in the technical practice notes. That's on page 4 of the memo being circulated. Any questions?
I guess that's provided. Is there another copy of it? Oh, that's right. Fine, I've got it here.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
We've got on diligent.
Okay, questions of colleagues? Councillor Edmonds?
Thank you for that explanation, Kelly. I just wondered, we refer here to 100-year minimum fixed floor levels and 200-year minimum. When a building consent is applied for, which of these levels are applied?
So the Chris might need to help me out with this, but just to, and this is the difference between when it's a subdivision being brownfield versus greenfield.
Yeah, it's what it's driven by is whether it's simply a building consent or whether there's a resource consent involved. So if it's a building consent, it's the 100-year level, and the reason for that is under the Building Act there's a requirement to mitigate for natural hazards, and we've had a legal opinion many years ago that said natural hazards should be assessed at the 100-year return period. So when we come to setting finished floor levels in Kaiapoi, if someone just rocks up and just wants to build a house and there's no other consenting requirements other than building consent, then the 100-year level is applied. If, however, what you're doing somehow triggers a resource consent, then we're required to give effect to the Canterbury RPS, which requires a 200-year level, hence the need to consider both. So a good example of where a resource consent might be required is if you're wanting to do something that doesn't strictly comply with the zoning rules, or if you are undertaking a greenfield type development, a new subdivision, or if you are doing a brownfield development which is adding, I think, more than three units onto a lot. Those would all be some examples of where you would trigger a resource consent, therefore the 200-year exemption.
Right, thanks for that. If you apply for a certificate, which which I think is what the process envisages, how long does that certificate remain current if there is a change in floor heights subsequent to that certificate being issued?
In terms of
Yeah, there is a period of time where that remains valid. Sorry, I don't recall exactly how many years that is.
That is also going to be subject to a future decision of the council. So this grant currently anticipates that we're moving to that process, but not at this stage.
Okay.
It's got no battery. Adrian, it's got no battery, the one you just given.
Yeah, he just needs to turn it on.
It's got no battery.
Oh, no.
Didn't they give it a battery? Didn't they do that?
Here it's good, but not quite happy.
It must have run out.
Alright, any other fifth questions, Councillor Williams?
Yeah, not quite 100%. It's very hard to actually understand this when you actually get into it. Most of it's looked like it's 500 mil out of the ground on the properties. We had an inspection one day of a property we looked on between Beach Road and Cash Street in Kaipoi, which is on the bend where there's a floor-level height that the developers put there. So is this going to fit that height, or is that the height we're still talking about having to build out of the ground?
So what the map shows, they show the minimum that we need to build in those areas to overcome the governing flood hazard. And for the northeastern part of Kaipoi, which I think is the area you're talking about, that would be the coastal flooding. That's what governs the flood levels in the area. So the Beach Grove subdivision is a good example of where the floor levels that you see there are governed by the coastal flood level. It is, however, a minimum level, so it's not a, so if you were in an area where maybe there was a localised high point and you were above that level, you wouldn't necessarily need to be half a metre out of the ground. And there are some areas, and I think Princess Place is a good example, where there's actually quite an elevation difference between one end of the lot and the other end of the lot. So the minimum finished floor level you see on the map indicates where the flooding is in the sort of road carriageway area. So you take that flood level, you add on half a metre, that gives you your minimum finished floor level. If, however, you were developing down the back of the property, it's possible that you might end up with having to go even higher again just to meet building code requirements. So, as I said before, it's a minimum level, and it reflects in Kaipoi you have these basins which don't have a natural overland flow path. And so what we've done in coming up with those levels is we've looked at where those basins are. They're normally formed by the road centre lines for the most part. And we've said, if we had complete failure of our infrastructure in that area, the level we're up to that point, how high would the house need to be in order to be clear of the flooding? So that's where the level comes from. But there will be instances where you would need to go higher again just to meet building code requirements in some cases.
Yeah, where I was coming from was this in William Street. This particular property is going to have to be 1.2 odd metres out of the ground, and it affects the neighbours so greatly because it's one section, the neighbours all around it. And so is there a mitigation situation where you can look after those neighbours, or do they just have to, because the house beside them has been either burned in a fire or what have you, it destroys the image of the area? Is there any mitigating ways we can look after those people?
So you're quite right. So there in some circumstances it's quite low lying ground. It might be 1.2 metres above the ground. And so the mechanisms that are there to protect the neighbours in this circumstance, if something is going up, is height in relation to boundary constraint. So there are some requirements around that, and if there's a resource consent to breach those, for example, then that would be something that's considered by a planning process. So that's the protections the neighbours get really. And you know, so suppose you might end up with a two-storey house where you don't have these building constraints, where the building has more of an imposition on neighbouring property than maybe one storey with a high pool. But look, we accept that this does put constraints on people when they go to build, because it does mean they do need to build up higher, and cost implications for the property owner doing it. And also potentially this does have an impact on the neighbours and the way those benefits are managed through those higher regulations and requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just had a question relating to the sewer plant and new version about the process and behind the era to the set of recommendations. So it says during the initial development of the finished for the mass, coastal inundation modelling work was not yet completed, and therefore we had to come back to this point. So in hindsight reflection, do you think it was wise to have actually gone out with initial iteration of finished for levels, where that modelling was actually completed? Just been through this another plan change process. Yeah. So what would be your sort of take on that? Where are we at? Another update.
I think I certainly take a point. I think what this touches on is whenever we do one of these exercises, and this is, and I think the most recent one we did in 2021 was, I think, the fourth or fifth generation of those exercises. Every time we do one, the numbers change a little bit. The coastal inundation modelling was probably represented a major change because we've never done that before. And so my view on that is we did the best we could with the information we had available. We didn't expect when we commissioned the coastal inundation modelling to see such an impact as we did. But when we got that information, we had to respond to that because it was new information and we had to adjust the levels accordingly. And I think it is simply the function of we needed something at the time to help with rebuilds in the Kaiapoi area, and we used the best information we had. And it was just a little unfortunate for timing that we had some new information come along a reasonably short time later.
And I would broaden the answer a little bit too, and I think Chris referenced this for the fifth generation. This district has been well served by the flooding that we have done over the last decade or so. And each, we have had changes as we get new modelling and new information over time. And prior to that, we had very little that would guide us, particularly in rural areas. And there are houses in this district who, with property owners, have to live with, I suppose, houses that were built at a time when we did not have such an understanding. So we get better each time, I believe, but we definitely do want to always, I suppose, put the best information we have into practice whenever we can. So to broadly answer the question, yes, we should have gone out earlier rather than wait until we all
And do you think that this is the reason colleagues left the room, district planning purposes, but there will be an exacerbation effect. When and if we ever have more housing, say in the north of Kaiapoi or the west of Kaiapoi to these flood inundation areas, do you expect that you will continuously have to revise these? More housing will have its impacts in the way that the water moves and flows.
So, generally speaking, there shouldn't be because those effects are mitigated. Generally speaking, probably the biggest drivers in the future are going to be, say, we get changes to corrections to sea level that come out of NEWA and the likes, and also changes to our rainfall figures, which they, through those 5 generations, both of those have changed compared to this one. So they're actually more likely to be the key drivers for any change. And when development occurs, the actual impact that they have actually is part of the consideration in both the plan changes or the resource consents. So, you know, we wouldn't expect that they would be significant.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just piggybacking off of my colleague's question here for a second, to fully wrap my head around it. Obviously, with increased rainfall, that can change the statistical outcomes of the 1 in 200 year flood. In this report, are the 1 in 200 year floods the same as or have they changed over the course of the year?
Sorry, when you said they changed from a previous modelling exercise. There would have been the only significant. Well, you just drop back a bit. So there's 3 main models that we use to model flooding. One being what we call localised flooding, which is rainfall. Second being actually breakout modelling, and third being coastal inundation. So in the latest round that we did, the coastal inundation was something new. We hadn't had that previously. Yeah, I mentioned before that, and particularly in that northeastern part of Kaipori, that's had a significant effect on the 200 year level, and in fact even the 100 year levels in those areas. In the other parts of the district, the localised models that we use that rely largely on rainfall, there's been very small changes. It doesn't, and it really is in response to improvements that we've made to the model. So the rainfall data itself has changed very little, but because we've got a more detailed model, there are some areas where we're seeing a little more flooding and some areas where we're seeing a little less flooding. But the total volume of flooding is roughly the same as it was previously. It's just been redirected in what we believe is a more accurate manner. So not a huge amount of change there. However, acknowledging, going back to Jared's comments, that if NEWA release an updated set of rainfall predictions, that has the potential to change as well. So, and this is one of the difficulties of this work, is that the inputs that we're using are constantly moving. The other bit of flooding I talked about, Ashley Breakout, that had some changes this time around as well. And that relies very heavily on ECAM's weather engineers and their predictions around what a breakout flood looks like and where it occurs. And so what we found as part of the latest work that ECAM did is they ended up, I believe, reducing the total flow from the main breakout location as part of this round of flood, this round of modelling, but they increased the flow in some of the other locations. So again, we had scenarios where in some areas the Ashley breakout was the governing factor, and following this work it wasn't the governing factor. In other areas it went the other way. So I guess in summary, really the Ashley breakout and the coastal inundation, they're probably the ones that had the most impact on those round modelling, with rainfall reasonably minor. Pretty long way of answering the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. And final question, Councillor Redden.
Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Mayor. On page 77 of Diligent, where the policy is, am I correct in thinking that the minimum floor levels apply to residential only and are advice for commercial? That's number 7.1.
Yes, that is the case. So under the operative district plan that we're working to at the moment, for commercial areas, because they're not classed as being habitable buildings under the Building Act, there is no specific floor level that they need to meet, so it becomes a commercial decision for them whether or not they want to meet that particular floor level. Under the proposed district plan, that will change.
Right. Given the complexity of the issues, and I'm struggling to get my head around it, what information is going to be put in limbs?
So whenever anybody gets a limb in our district now, they get a flood map, so that shows the predicted flood levels from the modelling, and whenever somebody gets a limb for a building that has been built, they'll get a copy of the building consent, which will collect whatever information that was part of that consent.
Right, they won't get a copy of the new records included.
They will get a copy of the new mapping that we do. Yes, we will. So anything that comes in the future, we always go to the most recent adopted mapping in that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a series of recommendations. Some people move. Move Councillor Bryan. I'll second it. Councillor Bryan.
Shall we go to use the new recommendation that staff have recommended?
I'm just using the one off the order paper.
There's a revised recommendation in the memo.
So just sorry to explain that better. So we took a report to Utilities and Road Committee, and they actually requested staff to do some additional work before bringing it to council. We've done that, and as a result of that, have put up a revised recommendation. Apologies if that wasn't clear.
Okay, can I just have a chance to read it? Sorry. It's not, so what's in here needs it's A and B, it needs C and D added, is that right?
That's yeah.
Right.
I'm just suggesting that there's a new B added.
Correct, so effectively, B and C still remain, they just get renumbered as C and D, and there's a new B that gets inserted noting the changes to the figures, figures 5 and 7 to include the coastal inundation matters.
Okay, we still prepared to move that. I have the second bit. We're all clear with what's there now? It's on page 3 of the memo. Right, would you like to speak to that, Councillor?
Just briefly, thank you. A colleague asked before the meeting, am I likely going to support this? And I replied 99% that I will. And colleagues will be aware of Jessica and my personal circumstance. We were doing a build in a flood area at Waimakariri Beach. Unbeknownst to us, when we were doing our planning, we had to go up 153 because of revised flooding requirements under the RPS. And neighbours had said to us, well, I hope you're not building 2-storey, and I assured them, no, we're not building 2-storey. And lo and behold, because we're having to go up, we are practically building 2-storey. And all up, I dread to think what this has cost us. The architect had told us before, if you agree to this architectural plan and you want to change it, you're looking at me charging you another $10,000. Sure enough, we got an objection from one of the neighbours on the resource consent because of recession plans, because we were going to be breaching them slightly. And instead of fighting it, I've asked the architect to move the property away from that fence, hence costing us another $10,000. Now, I had supported that report when it came to us a couple of 3 years ago, and I will support this one today, obviously, because I've moved it. And you'll see hindsight is a wonderful thing. It's already been mentioned once today in today's meeting, but use hindsight. But if we're not planning for, and I am a climate change believer, there will be some that are not, but I am. And quite frankly, it's remiss of this council, albeit, as I say, Jessica and I, it's cost us
and time and money and a fair degree of frustration. But if you don't plan for the future, you'll fall. And I think this council needs to plan for the future as well and take steps to mitigate what the future possibly could have. And you look at recent instances up in the North Island, where councils are getting absolutely hammered for the lack of foresight that they used in approving developments and what have you, and then lo and behold, a weather event occurs and the council is in the game for giving approval. Yet the rules, excuse me, the rules at that time allowed for that development. Well, I think we are taking a good view with adopting this for the future in those areas where flooding is identified as a risk. And on that basis, obviously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Just in seconding this, I'm also supporting that, and I would just acknowledge when you get updated information, you do make sure that what we're doing is as current as possible. That's the key. As I see this, I have been aware of a number of people who have gone to build, and Councillor Bryan's one in that situation, but there are a number who certainly had to look seriously at what the cost is and the implications behind it. But if we don't undertake it as we do in this instance and make sure that that risk is managed, then we will be in the gun later on if something happens and we couldn't have taken every practical step. I've been in the situation where I've said times of civil defence emergencies, and I know just how much risk we can be at times. And if we don't take the steps like this to ensure that we are acting responsibly, as I say, we can, rightly so, would be in the gun at a later stage. So we've got to base it on the information that we've got. Can I just acknowledge our team and the excellent work that they do? I was at a conference over the weekend in a private capacity, and an individual came up to me who works in the area of GIS, just wanted to say that he feels that our staff and what we do is some of the best in the country, if not in the world. And that was from a recognised expert who said you are incredibly lucky to have the team that you do and the work that they do. So I just want to extend that on, because I do think we are in that situation. And when we have a situation where there's been an error or updating of it, here we are revising it today. That's exactly what this is undertaken to do. Appreciate that this can be frustrating for individuals looking to build, but at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that that risk is as best managed as possible. And in this instance, I think we are doing the right thing. And although I do see some of the heights, you do seriously scratch your head and think around the logic of why it looks like that. And I've had a number of instances where that is the case. But when you look back at it, when it's peer reviewed, we've got to do what is the right thing in that instance. Actually, when I look at it, you go around even my own subdivision where I live in, you don't actually realise or appreciate where the finished floor heights are, because the land's on the road level, the land's actually sculptured up and at a level where it is right. So when you're doing a new builds and it's completely at ground level, the whole entire development, it's catered for within that. It's just where you've got retrofitting or new builds coming in an existing environment where it looks out of place, and that I can understand the concern that comes. And it is a complex area, so no two ways about it, as Councillor Williams mentioned before, and Councillor Redmond, getting your head around it takes a bit. So I appreciate the staff have done the best that they can to make sure it's as simple as we can see it. Right, further speakers, Councillor Williams and Redmond.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the situation. Councillor Bryan needs to be planning for the future. Well, this council has been planning for the future. It's spent over $20 million on some big pumps in Kaipoi to help some of this flooding mitigation. And that's going to help in areas that we actually haven't had flooding in Kaipoi, which is going to be affected by this, the heights and all that. 70 years old, come from Kaipoi, there's areas here that people have to build 1.2, 1.5 out of the ground because of flooding, and that area's never been flooded before. And we've actually had spent money on mitigation in those areas. So, and I'm concerned we're going to have, particularly a Kaipui, a staircase community, some houses down a low level, new ones up a high. But no problems with a brand new subdivision, everybody the same height. But, you know, probably some houses up high and some low. I'm concerned about it. But there is going to be a cost for our development there, and from what I understand from some builders I've been talking to, between $30,000 and $40,000 difference in the foundation builds. Ecan, you mentioned the actually breakout. I noticed Ecan just spent a lot of money, finished in just by River Road, Milton Street, a secondary stop bank there in case there's actually breakout and mitigation there. I know Ecan's got a lot of money into mitigation on new stop banks and upgrading them all around the area, which is going to help. On the drainage groups, we're all talking about half the problem with the Ashley Group breakout is down to the sandbars that's not being let loose to get the buff plate pulled out of the Ashley before it all happens. So I've got concerns here, and I can't support this until I actually probably get a wee bit more information that we can all understand the problem first, because this is to the layperson very hard to understand, and two, when you talk to the developers and all that, which are the experts as far as developing side, they can't understand as well. So there's a wee bit of concern here. We have been planning for the future, no two ways about that, by putting in these over $20 million for the pumping stations, and Ecan's doing it with their stop banks and all that drama. And we have had, as I understand it, more than 100 year, probably getting up to 200 year floods and rainfalls and everything in waimakariri so far, but we actually haven't had the floods that modelling's predicted in some of those areas. So things could change, yes, I agree there, but we are mitigating that problem because those so-called 200 years or 100 year floods have happened before we put in these $20 million pumping stations. It's going to help the situation tremendously. So I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond also. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too have some reservations about the complexity of the practice note, but I do understand the reason for it, and in a general way I understand how it's intended to work. So on that basis, I'm prepared to support the amended and corrected notice. And Councillor Bryan referred to it, I think, that if somebody is flooded, the first thing that happens is, why did the council let me build here? And so we carry the blame. I'm not going to say we carry the can. So that's the reason, obviously, for this. But in itself, it's not the total solution. And we met with some residents of Threakhelds Road, I think last week, which you're aware of, and their dwellings were not flooded, but they couldn't get to them. They were marooned in their own house. And I share a concern for Councillor Bryan, who may be marooned in his. I drove past Threakhelds Road today, and I noticed one of the people affected most by that flooding, they've actually got an old boat sitting in their front yard. So it may be there for a purpose. So whilst the minimum floor levels affect habitable dwellings, it doesn't actually help you with access, how to get into your house or how actually to get out of it. And that was quite well explained by these people in Threakhelds Road. This won't solve that problem, but it's part of the bigger issue, I think. The other thing was, I was intrigued how part of William Street was not affected, And as a result of my question, we've ended up with these corrected diagrams. So I'm pleased that you went away and come up with an explanation of not only was it wrong, but you actually discovered how it had happened. I just wondered if anyone had been building in that area, and there has been some activity, what minimum floor levels they may have been required to have under the existing notice. But anyhow, that said, I am prepared to support this. I do have reservations if we can try and keep things simple, and some of this information is obviously going to be in limbs, and it can potentially affect a value of property. So we need to be very conscious of that.
Councillor Redmond, Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I contest for second hand the complexity of the work that's required for floor levels and building and designing a house, and I only say that because my partner has to design, architectural design, has to do this for a living, a major building firm, and she often speaks about the complexity, not just of the council, but also the client wants to move the house by 2 degrees. All the fences obviously is in the wrong location, and this is just cost, just mount. She spends hours of her working life revising plans, and not just because of the interaction with the council either. So it's tough work. I'll just probably, my main comment here would be that this is a change, quite literally, to a technical practice note. And it doesn't mean that that debating finished floor levels isn't important, but we're not actually debating the substance of climate change or water levels or even modelling. This is actually bringing consistency to our own finished floor levels and our planning and regulation. So there's quite a technical sort of thing. It's not easy to understand, and I'm there by too. Yeah, this is something that needs to be addressed and amended. And that's why I asked the question about how did we come to this and how many amendments have we made. This is another one, there will be more to come. Unfortunately, we just need to keep on making them, we need to try and model as best we can and anticipate future effects on the environment. And yeah, so we're just trying to basically bring, as far as I can see, bring our practice notes into line, make sure that we've got consistency between one area and another. So on that basis, I'll be supporting set of recommendations. Thank you.
Further speakers, like to reply, Councillor Brown.
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Williams mentioned $30,000 to $40,000 on the foundation extra. In our instance, a normal foundation where we built would have been 63. The foundation was 120 because of the extras that we had to include because of the flooding risk. Councillor Redmond has mentioned thresholds. In my previous occupation, I used to work with civil defence quite a lot. We addressed a meeting at Waikaku Beach because Beach Road quite frequently became flooded, and you'd have half to a metre of water on Beach Road going in and out of Waikaku, cutting off access. You know, even if you had to snorkel, you were right on your full drive, but otherwise you were shot. And quite frankly, I said to people there, look, when I'm here, there's always a dinghy up the drive. You know, the dinghy is there if you need it, because you have to go to a doctor's appointment or whatever, get family to meet you on the other side and take you to whatever that appointment. But if you don't plan for these things and you live at a beach, silly you. It went down like a cup of sick, as you would imagine, but nevertheless, if you want to live at a beach, it's got all this, but there are risks involved. And to me, the extra cost of this build is trying to avoid that risk. Now, I feel sorry for the neighbours. I really don't want something adverse to happen, and that's why we spend 20 million. I'm not sure of that figure, but I suppose we spend 20 million and we give our rates to ECAD to build up stock banks and what have you to try and avoid it ever happening. But nevertheless, I'm very risk adverse person. It's an attitude I've taken to this council table for 27 years, is my adversity to risk, and hence the position I'm taking on this. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary?
He abstained.
So you abstain? I declare that carried. Do you want your abstention recorded? So abstention from councillor Williams recorded. Thank you, Tim. Alright, so next is item 8.2. Someone pop out the wiki and level mode taking the 10. This is the approval of the capital works renewal program. Elizabeth Walmer, thanks, Chief. Need that climate chill.
Yeah.
Frostbite.
It's been cold the last few days, hasn't it? There's an Auckland that was cold up there as well, so it's cold in here. Jeez. Alright, thank you. So we've got, who's leading the? Thank you.
Kia ora, ko Justine Tokuingoa. Good afternoon, councillors and Mr Mayor. I'm before you to present the report of the Green Space Capital Works Renewal Programs and Sports Grounds Growth Program. This report was received and approved by the Community and Recreation Committee, who have provided a recommendation to Council seeking approval to bring forward the public toilet renewals budget for Woodend Beach Toilet, scheduled in Year 3 to bring it into Year 2. This budget is a biannual budget. I will take this report as read, but would like to highlight bringing forward the budget would enable the Woodend Beach master projects to be completed within the same year. The master project includes renewals of the play space, the toilet and the roads and car parks, which are all interconnected within that area. Combining asset renewals within a tender process will allow for cost savings, in particular for project setup costs. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Thank
you, Mr Mayor. Moving this forward now and our capital projects, what if we're at capacity with our capital projects now and we move this forward, what misses out? As an overall, it's possibly a Jeff or a Don question rather than you guys, Don Young maybe, but we have trouble completing our capital works project. I want to make sure we're not pushing something back to bring something forward.
Good question.
Thank you. Within Green Space, we have a newly appointed project manager who's taking on some of the projects, as well as PDU, who assists with Green Space capital projects. Because the toilet budgets are biannual, nothing in terms of the toilets will be moved forward or replaced.
In terms of green space staff capacity, there's benefits to doing the whole three at once. It means we can design everything at the same time, do it all as one thing. So there's economies of scale, but also economies of us being efficient looking at the whole thing, rather than the alternative is potentially we get it all planned, we do a new car park next year, and then the following year we get enough money for the toilet and taking out things or shifting things around. So it's trying to, I guess, make that the most efficient processes.
I guess just following off that, it's probably a question to our CE. I don't mind shifting budgets and adjusting, but what worries me is the cumulative effect, and it's not just this, there's another report today. How do we keep an oversight of that? Because we've gone out very carefully with our program, indicating what the rates increase is going to be. I just don't want to see that the cumulative result is that it ends up pushing up next year's rating impact, because they are the bits that we do. Is there some way that is being tracked or could be tracked, and when requests like this come up, we can see the cumulative impact?
Yeah, that's a good question. We discussed that with the management team. So there's going to be a number of things that will, over the year, we've seen inflation will prolong. But one of the actions that we've taken is to track the cumulative effect of it, but not only just the cumulative effect of the increased costs, where we see things being brought forward and so forth, but also tracking tendered works where there's savings and capital works. So a total program, we're not just looking at cost, but looking at the actual savings that we're making on tendered works. So when the council is making a decision, it's making a decision that's informed of what the rate increase is likely to change in the following year. And that, of course, doesn't stop the council actually readjusting the program when it comes to the following year's capital works as well. One of the things we also talked about was, we just can't keep on pushing out critical works. So what else can we actually look at the time to make the rates more palatable? So we're just working on a policy at the moment which quantifies savings and efficiencies that we've made over the year. That's something that we've always done, but we will actually quantify what that savings is when we go into the following annual planning. So we're just looking at a whole number of actions which we're improving upon and budgeting as we go forward. But it's a good question. In past years we've just added and said, well, we have to do this works, we just have to increase it and increase the rates next year. But what we are very conscious of is ensuring that we keep the rates as low as we can.
Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Fulton.
Just a question regarding to the future planning and provisioning when, for instance, toilet facilities. There's current community consultation that's gone up for a new user group and the customer name, for instance. Quite a significant number of people, going to something could space next year or two be using that facility. How do we sort of react and budget for that sort of thing? On an ad hoc basis, when user groups suddenly turn up at a park, they want to bring potentially dozens, not hundreds of people, through a new facility, and yet we might have the facilities for it. Talking about the Austin football club, so it's quite a large number of people.
Yeah. So I guess that's working with them as those things come to us. We're with them to find out what their needs and requirements might be and what the ongoing needs, if that was to continue, and then bring that as they come up, working out whether we need to do something in their annual plan or the next long-term plan to meet that need. We also have a community facilities network plan where we're always looking at where, I guess, in the future we might need facilities and things to meet growth and so sometimes it'll come through that. But we are looking at those ways.
So the annual plan can be more reactive, is that what I'm saying, is that when things come up, that pressure can provide for them to people,
I believe so, but obviously that would be working out what things you're going to pull back on to allow if you were to. So that's part of that process.
Just adding on to that as well, with this program, we are bringing it back to the Community and Rec Committee and the boards annually. So there is an opportunity annually for both parties to reassess the priorities for that year.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Redmond.
Thank you. On page 87, under roads and car park renewals, there's reference to Kaiapoi Boat Club Reserve. I just wondered, what is it and where is it? It's on our diligent page. Maybe different page number for you. Page 3.
So that one was in year 2. So that is actually the Murphy Park river access. So within the sports facility strategy, that was identified as an item that required funding, and it was called Kite Boat Club Reserve within the strategy.
So it's by the old Croker grounds there. Right, thanks.
Okay, further questions? I've got a recommendation. I'll move it. Seconded, Councillor Ward. Just in moving it, I'm supportive of adjusting, but as I mentioned in my comments on a question to the Chief Executive before, I do want to start to track the cumulative impact. And I'd like to see Mr. Chief Executive, when management team have considered that, how that's reported back to our meetings. So when these items are being considered, that impact we are mindful of that before we make a decision, whether it's in the report or whether there's a covering report at each meeting that tracks that. I think would be something I think we should be just very mindful of. I'm very pleased to hear the reporting on efficiencies, as you mentioned, because this council does focus on those each and every budget meeting we have in the lead up to those, and actually having a better mechanism of capturing that, I think would be helpful, and also where we have made savings on the way we've undertaken procurement, or where there's been adjustments because of inflation that are outside our control, and then when we've made a decision that's cognizant of that, or where we've decided to defer it because the budget is just simply no longer attainable or achievable. So those sort of reporting would be helpful, I think. So thank you for taking that initiative, because it's something I think we all benefit from as elected members, particularly as we've got major decisions we make each and every single meeting. So I'm supportive of this, but just on note, just for future, that's what I would like to see. Who was seconding that? Is Councillor Ward?
I just thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, can say.
You look along the same lines as yourself, Mr. Mayor. I just cognizant of the cumulative effect of these things that happen. I mean, smoothing will hopefully take care of some of that as we move along. But the other one that I'm really have been hot on for years, and I know we get much better reporting from Don Young, no reflection on you guys at all, is actually meeting our capital works project. And I don't think any council actually meets a capital works program because of timings and because of the way things happen. But I don't want to see us load our capital works project and then find out, just by moving things forward, that we've got far too much on it and we're never going to meet it by a bigger amount. So I just want to make sure that that is also kept in check, which will also keep in check that budgetary concern that we're talking about with the cumulative effect. We've pulled that back in the last few years and been meeting higher targets on the capital project. I'll make sure we stay in that realm and that we're still heading to bigger results in completing capital works.
Thank you. Further speakers? Well, then I'm not responding to I don't have anything to respond to, so I'll put the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Thank you. Got item 9, which is health, safety and wellbeing. Deputy Mayor, would you mind just taking over just a couple of seconds? It's something I just need to attend to.
Jeff, it's you.
Thanks very much. I'll just take the report as read, just noting that the health and safety audits have been taking place still. There's been good results in those. You'll note there's been quite a few adverse reactions from the public in different areas, which have been related to the police.
Questions, Chief? Councillor Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 116, there has been a long-term injury in aquatics that seems to have gone on for about 7 years. Is that a cost to the council, or will that be handled by ACC?
It's an ACC claim, it's an excellent, and it's not the first one. There's a number of recurring accidents that are from that as well. So we do our best to get employees back to work, and that's just a recurring one, which we are persevering on.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Deputy Mayor, just a quick question, Mr Millwood, in regards to page 114 in diligence, and that regards to the group of teenagers leaving a mess in the library. Are those sort of, is that actually quantified in terms of the cost to council and the ratepayers in terms of the cleaning up of these sort of messes? And is that quantified or collected, or the data collected over time, or is it relatively minuscule?
I'm not 100% over this one, but generally where there's a mess, we try and recover if we can, and we have in the past. So yes, we would be taking that one further if there's a substantial cost. I'm not aware that Chris has moved left, but I'm not aware of any large cost involved. That was just a lot of rubbish and mess left there. But if there's incidences, sometimes there's a traffic incident, we can often recover the cost. All right, thank you.
Further questions, we have a mover. Moved Councillor Redmond, seconded Councillor Ward. Councillor Redmond.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Ward. Any further speakers? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We have a series of minutes from 10.1 through to 11.5. They're all for information. Do we have a mover for those? Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Goldsworthy. Are there any questions on those minutes? Appear to be none. I should put those. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We have the Mayor's Diary, which is there. We have a mover for the Mayor's Diary. I'll move from the Chair, seconded Councillor Ward. Is there any discussion on the Mayor's Diary? Any questions? Appear to be none. I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We are at 3 o'clock. Down for a cup of tea. I think it's 3 o'clock, aren't we? And so we might take a break for 15. Be back here at 3:15, and just continue on with the rest of the agenda, and then there are some committee items after that. Adjourned at 3:15. I think.